Welcome to the New Kind of Man podcast. And today we have the special treat of bringing on Adam Asher. He is the man behind the Edge of Adventure. We've been connected for a little while on social media, and he has a unique story and a unique work that you men need to know. So, Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great, Chad. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all of your work. And it's just been great to connect with you on social media, get to learn about you and your passion. And it really is an honor to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I found out about you, I think originally just somehow connected on Instagram and really started to draw into your story. And it's kind of, it's kind of intriguing. The Edge of Adventure. I'm like, who doesn't love an adventure? And then I heard you on Michael's podcast and I thought, man, I've got to have him on the New Kind of Man podcast because of that story. So, what I'd like to
Mm.
do is just kind of give you an opportunity to give us a little bit of the backstory of the Edge of Adventure.
Well, thanks again, Chad. And yeah, Michael with Man Under Construction does a fantastic job. So a shout out to him. Appreciate the
Mhm.
opportunity to be on his podcast. And you guys should definitely check it out if you haven't. Man Under Construction. Check out that the Instagram there. And Chad, just again, super honored to be here. Yeah, again, my name is Adam Asher, and I'm the host and creator of The Edge of Adventure. And you can find out about it at theedgeofadventure.com. Simply put, it is a video series where I am the host and I take you as the viewer to a faraway land somewhere, someplace that's off the beaten path, take you to some of the most remote corners of the globe to witness some of the most inspiring acts of service. And that's humanitarian work of any number of different kinds. It might be areas where people need food, or where we got to get kids off the streets, or organizations are helping the people to develop their communities economically in some way, medical care, dental care, you name it. I've always been impressed or moved or inspired by the organizations and the people that do those kinds of things. And I've always loved to travel. It's always been kind of a fun thing for me. And I just felt like I needed to combine those two passions and use my media skills and journalistic skills and begin to tell the stories of the people and the organizations around the world who are giving of themselves to help others. And that is my concept behind the Edge of Adventure.
That is awesome. Yeah, I was checking out some of the videos, and man, you guys need to go to the website. I'll link all that in the show notes as well. Just the work that you do, the video work and the storytelling is remarkable. And really, I think what I was drawn to the most is the fact that you're celebrating somebody else's service. That is phenomenal. I mean, that is a message that the world needs, and to just to elevate other people who are deciding to get outside of themselves and serve wherever that is in the globe. And of course, I'm sure that takes you to some interesting places. We'll probably get to that in just a couple minutes. Well, the next segment that I would like to dig into is the Fast Five. So this is just five uh, fast, furious questions ranging from some of the things that are specific to you, but just so others get to know you a little bit better. And so you ready?
Sounds good. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right.
See
So
if
the
I
first
see if
one
I can
is,
do this.
what was your favorite place that you visited?
Mhm. So, a little bit of a cop out question here. Probably will have to say that favorite places are hard for me. It's
Mhm.
hard for me to think about because I find something amazing in every place that I go. They're not all the same. I mean, some of the places are just they might be just beautiful in terms of the terrain or
Mm.
the countryside, and other places the beauty is in a unique element of culture or the way you're treated in a place and loved and embraced. So, um, yeah, I would really have a hard time answering that. I love to go anywhere, and I would go anywhere, and the places are not the same. The cultures and the people are not the same. Um, certainly would have to say that I immensely have enjoyed my time in Nicaragua
Mhm.
in recent years, and in particular, that was the debut season of The Edge of Adventure is based in Nicaragua. So I'd certainly have to give a shout out to that beautiful country and those beautiful people.
I love that answer because that means you're really open minded no matter where you go, that you're just looking to take in the beauty, whether it's culture, whether it's the, just the scenery, the geography, whatever it is. So that just, it sounds like you just open yourself up to receive whatever the beauty is. I
I hope
love
so. I mean, that would be my intent. Uh, I do love to travel, but the thing for me that's always been missing in if it's travel for just for travel's sake, then it's cool. I mean, it's nice
that. Hmm.
and hey, it's okay. We all need vacations, and it's good
Sure.
to
Yeah.
do those sorts of things. But I am really I've always been struck with okay, I want to go somewhere. I want it to be hard to get to, and I want to somehow know that my trip there mattered.
Mm.
And again, that's sort of the solution to that is what I came up with the edge of adventure. Because if I go, I hopefully get the opportunity, as you said, and you said it very well, to celebrate someone else's service. And there's so many great people serving, and so many. I get to be a part of it anyway. To the five.
The second question is it kind of leads right off of the first one, actually, because you kind of answered some of this, but what motivates you?
Wow. I hope motivated to help people. I hope I'm motivated to lead, be a good leader.
Hmm.
I hope I'm motivated to be a character, a good caretaker, someone who for the people that are uh, under under your authority or responsibility, whether it's your family, to
Hmm.
to some that you are working with. Yeah, I would hope those things do motivate me. I mean, I don't want to sit and say I have achieved all of that. Not, I'm sure that's not true, but I do want to make a difference. Maybe if you would boil the answer would be, I want to make a difference.
Hmm.
Difference.
Yeah, and there's no doubt in my mind that you are doing that. That you're certainly making a difference by just telling these stories that need to be told. So, on to something that's not as deep, but what is the weirdest food?
Oh, did we lose my? Is that? I
Yeah,
wonder if my connection dropped.
yeah, I think it did. I think it
All
did.
right, it came back quick. Okay, you'll be able to. Will you be able to edit this stuff together?
Yeah, I'll figure it out. So I may
Cut
have
it
to
out.
cut something out, but I'll make it work.
I
So
hope that's. I don't know what the internet. Okay, so we still record. Looks like we're still recording. Okay.
yeah, I'm still recording on my end. So just 1 second, I'll snap my fingers, and then we'll go to just a next
You want to
question.
re-ask this second question? What motivates you?
Yeah, I would. I
No, I
would.
think I did. Unless I answered that, I don't know where it cut off.
Yeah, it was kind of pinging on my side, and I thought that I
Okay.
was going to get it to work. So if it's squared away now, I'll snap my fingers, and that'll be the signal for me. And then I'll just
Okay.
say, well, what motivates you?
Okay.
Well, what motivates you?
Chad, I think probably the short answer to that would be um, making a difference. I want to make a difference.
Hmm.
I want to be a good leader. I want to be a good father. I want to, you know, tell these stories as I travel around the world and meet these great servants around the world doing these wonderful things to help other people. I want to serve them in some way. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've achieved all of that and that I am those things, but I sincerely hope that um, I'm a good leader and a good servant too of people. So short answer probably is just to say that I my motivation would be to make a difference, a positive difference.
Hmm. Yeah, and I definitely think that you are making a difference. I believe that the difference you're making is most likely a lot bigger than what you even think that it is. So I want to encourage you with that. Just to, It's difficult. I can just imagine how difficult it is when you're telling somebody else's story. So you're elevating someone else, and I'm sure that you don't automatically see the fruit of all that labor. But it's inspired me, and I guarantee anyone who has gone to the website and they've looked at that and they see what you're about, that they would be excited too. So maybe something that has not been that exciting on your trip is, or on trips rather. What is the weirdest food that you have eaten on one of your trips around the globe?
Um, Weirdest food. So, probably weirdest slash least favorite was in Egypt,
Hmm.
and it was camel liver, and I didn't love it. Didn't love it.
I can
Um,
imagine why.
you can also one of the in the culture over there is they're very hospitable, and so if you are in someone's home, they definitely want you to um, partake and
Mm,
enjoy, and they're great taking care of you. They might, however, in my experience, they might sort of overestimate the amount of food you can eat. So they're great to you. They're being very kind, but they sort of have this anticipation that you're going to be able to eat and keep eating and keep eating. And I remember feeling kind of caught between that I cannot eat anymore and the not wanting to offend or be unkind to my hosts. So you add all that in, and then you're sitting there trying to eat camel liver. So not maybe the what the American palates used to.
yeah, certainly not my palate. I could tell you, I've never had. I've been to Egypt and have never eaten a camel's liver, so I totally understand that. So, where are you stationed out of? Where are you like right now?
Headquarters is Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta is my home and has been my home now for uh, 20 years, and then
Hmm.
before that, it was really a second home. I'm a Georgia boy, grew up here in Georgia. My family, on my mother's side, they're all from Atlanta, so it's always been home, and I've lived here, and this has been my actual home for 20 years, and boy, time flies.
Yeah, the ATL. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm only about 2 hours south of you, so we need to catch up and get a cup of coffee. I know of
that's right.
several great coffee shops in Atlanta. So,
Well, they're here. It's a great foodie town, of course, as you
mhm.
know. And as a fellow Georgia boy, you definitely need to get up here to Atlanta. Just let me know when you're going to be up here. Let's grab lunch or coffee or something, and it'd be great to meet you in person.
Yeah, for sure. So, has there ever been like a dangerous situation? I mean, you think about that. I've had the opportunity when I was in the Navy to go to different places in the world and on missions trips. And not really that dangerous for me, but I know that there is danger out there. So, have you had any dangerous situations?
So I'm sure. I mean, I think you're kind of racking my brain thinking of a particular moment that I thought was particularly dangerous. There's a level of danger in all of it, I guess. I know that when you go to a foreign country, you are a guest of the country, and you want to be very respectful and and honor them, of course, because you want to. So last thing you want to do is get in trouble with the local government somehow by doing something that they don't appreciate. Um, yeah, I mean, there's. I would say, and I don't want to go back to the Egypt thing. I'd probably
Mhm.
say the most, um, well, I mean, probably now I'm thinking of a couple of instances. Once in Egypt and once in a Latin American country where you know that you just sort of stick out as a foreigner, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you're the guy that doesn't belong,
Mhm.
and the potential dangerous situations come out of nowhere where somebody has a gripe with you, or
Mhm.
maybe maybe they're not in their right mind for one reason or another,
Mhm.
and then they sort of come up to you to pick a fight. A couple of times that's happened. I mean, it's always able to deal with it and manage it. It's never been life threatening or anything like that, but you do need to be alert. Keep your head on a swivel,
For sure.
and you should probably do that anywhere, even in the whatever your home country is here in the states or wherever. Um, but it's just it's a good idea to be aware of what's going on around you, because it is quite possible and has happened on occasion where you have someone come up out of the blue, out of nowhere,
Hmm.
with to pick a fight, and you just it's not really what you want. So you look to diffuse it
Hmm.
and and uh, and get to safety. Yeah,
Yeah, totally understand that. Yeah, and that is, I mean, that's definitely something that uh, I've heard recently, and just was brought to my attention again. The situational awareness. I think I was having a conversation with my son and talking about the incidents that happen with people. Are usually, we let our guard down or we do something. It's even in our home where we get in a compromising situation. So I guess there's an element of danger anytime you put your guard down. So you said keep your head on a swivel. I served in the Navy and worked on an aircraft carrier, so that is a term that I I am very
sure.
well adversed with.
Well,
And
first of all, yeah, thank you for your service, of course, and hopefully people say that to you frequently and honor you for that. Yeah, you guys are. I mean, you're putting yourselves in harm's way constantly, and so thank you for that. And of course, yeah, we. How old is your son?
my son's 23.
Okay, 23.
Yep.
So, yeah, my son's 22,
Mm,
and yeah, same sort of thing. We realize, if you had a chance to live a little bit, you realize just how dangerous the world is. Look, I mean, we go through life most of the time, it's fine, but yes, whether you're here or elsewhere, stay aware of your surroundings, um, and just be safe, because yeah, there are always risks.
absolutely. So I want to get into what I'm going to call the spur, and that is questions just to spur men to become stronger. So I want to drill down a little bit into your particular work and just ask you this question: what is adventure to you? I think that's lacking in men, the idea of adventure, or maybe the willingness, or just making it a priority, or maybe they think adventure is childish. Maybe they go back to some uh, boyhood thing that they did, and they're like, yeah, that was when I was a boy, but now I'm a man. So I certainly don't believe that. I think that adventure is valuable for everyone. So I would just like to know what adventure is to you.
So I agree with you, Chad. Adventure is not childish at all. I think as children, certainly as boys, we play these adventurous games because from the very beginning, uh, that is what we're made for. We
Hmm.
are made for adventure. And it might be a game when we're kids, but it really isn't a game as when we're adults, as we grow into men.
Hmm.
We what is okay, you ask, what is adventure to me?
Hmm.
Adventure can take many forms, but I think adventure is facing the unknown with bravery.
Love that.
And we have to do that as men and as adults in this world. You can be hit with bad news. You can have an unfortunate situation come up. You can have loss. You can, have somebody turn against you. I mean, all these things that happen in life, and you don't want them. Well, there's unknown. I don't know what's going to happen next year. I mean, maybe you got to move your family across the country, or maybe you got to help somebody face an illness of some kind. There's a level of adventure in all of that. Okay, and
Hmm.
we need to be very, we need to take it seriously that we're called to face the unknown with bravery. And in the Edge of Adventure, in the video series, okay, my objective is to do what I've told you, is to take you to places that are off the beaten path, these remote locations, and help to tell the stories of some of the most inspiring acts of service. Okay, that's absolutely true. That
Hmm.
is my objective. But the Edge of Adventure, as a video series, as a uh, work of art, in my opinion,
Hmm.
it's also a metaphor for life. It is also meant to be something that we can all identify with and say, you know what, I need to launch out into this area of the unknown in my own life, and I need to face it with bravery, and I need to take that on and realize that I have a purpose. There's purpose in that unknown. I may not know what it is yet. I might not, but I've got to go face the unknown with bravery. And in that, Chad, if we do that, we're going to find and face our adventure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was just wondering, just because I'm just really intrigued about this, and I'm intrigued probably more so because of my own failures, but then also maybe some future work of mine. You said your son's 22, right?
Correct. My son is 22.
Yeah. I was just wondering how how have you invited him into adventure, like growing up, or is this something that you've come to terms with later, or maybe you've just learned later? But have you been able to invite him into this adventure, or maybe even through initiation when he was younger, or what
Mm.
happened? What was that timeline like for you?
That's a great question because I think as fathers or as mentors, we do have the responsibility to help the younger guys grow into men. And a part of that is to take on that adventure. I've certainly tried to. I think that'd be a great question to ask my son and
Hmm.
to get his perspective on it. But yes, I've sought to do that, and I'm sure I've at times I probably did it better than at other times.
Hmm.
But I think probably answer it in a couple of ways. First of all, I didn't shelter him.
Okay.
I, I didn't, as when he was a kid, obviously there are things you don't want them to be exposed to until they're really ready. But I didn't seek to protect him from the challenges of the world or the
Hmm.
ugliness of the world or the way in which the world will try to come and take something from you. I wanted him to, when he didn't have to fight the battle all by himself, I wanted him to grow into understanding that and to understand it was going to take a mental toughness to be an adult, and it was going to take challenge. And I mean, you're going to have to face your challenges. It's going to take sacrifice,
Hmm.
and you're going to make your choices, and you're going to pay your prices. So think about the choices you make now. Uh, think about them and choose wisely. I've also had the opportunity with him to take him on a couple of adventures. We've traveled around. We've gone to other countries and other parts of the nation, and he's a gifted filmmaker in his own right. And he and I went to Colombia. We haven't used much of that footage yet, but we did go to Colombia recently, and he did all the videography for that. He was led that, and so I hope in some way he, um, had a opportunity to live that adventure with his father.
Oh, right on. That's great. I love that. I just and that's one of the things that I've trained my son up with, this thought and belief that men do hard things. Like, we just do hard things. It's like when other people they remove themselves from adversity, men have to face that adversity. That's just
Hmm.
one of the high calls of manhood, is to do that and to face that adventure. And in the adventure is what I found. Is adventure is the thing that's right in front of you. I mean, all of life could be an adventure. It's, you know, loving a woman is an incredible adventure. Doing that is an adventure. Raising kids is an adventure. Going off. For me, now going on a missions trip. I'm no longer in the Navy, so going on a missions trip. There's adventure there. Serving someone, just even meeting with somebody who sees the world differently. I'm like, there's adventure there. So I think that's great, and I think the fact that you invited your son in on that journey is just that's great, and I think that speaks very highly of you to be intentional in that regard.
Yeah.
So
Thank
why?
you.
Yeah, of course. So why the edge of adventure?
Oh, oh wow. This is good, Chad. Thank you for asking that. This is not a question you prepared me for. I didn't know this one was coming. Why the edge of adventure? So, different reasons why. I I believe that the edge of adventure, as you think too about the metaphor, as I said earlier, the program is a metaphor.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be. It's adventure television. It highlights the stories and tells the stories of these great servants, people who are serving other people, giving of themselves to help others and to help preserve and take care of these great peoples and great communities and cultures around the world.
Mhm.
Okay, but from the metaphor of the edge of adventure, I happen to believe that when we get to the end of what we know. I think of it almost as a box. We're in a box. We're in our daily routine. We do our stuff every day and we're comfortable. And
Mhm.
then anything out there that's on the other side of that box or outside the box, it's the unknown. It's the part I'm not comfortable with. I'm not super aware of what's going to happen, right? That's that moment in time where you come to the end of what you know and you push out into the scary part.
Yeah.
That is the edge of adventure. The
Love
adventure
it.
is on the other side of that line. And
Mm.
that's why I said bravery. It takes bravery to go across that line and to go out into it and to face it. And the adventure is on the other side of that line. And so that's why I really felt like the edge of adventure was an important concept. And the slogan that I use all the time is beyond status quo,
Mm.
because that is what we have to become fed up with, Chad,
Mhm.
is status quo. I can't just do what I've always done.
Mm.
And what it would be for you or me or our children, kids, our friends. I mean, it's not the same. People listening to the podcast, it's not the same for everybody. But you do need to be brave and push past what you know and go beyond status quo. And I promise you, if you do that, you do it bravely, you're not going to
Mhm.
be disappointed. But yeah, uh, buckle up, guys. It's going to take bravery.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to ask you that too. What is because I picked up on that when I was watching the video and just observing your content. You drew out the status quo, so apparently you're reading my notes. I don't know how you did that from Atlanta, but that
Oh,
was great.
well, that's when I developed all this, and when I began really just designing it and developing it, and it was all of it was just kind of, I guess, in a way, just in my soul.
Mhm.
And it was just the kind of thing I just had to sort through. I didn't understand it, couldn't put it into words, and it was a long process to kind of get to the point. Well, what is it? What is it that I feel? What is this passion I have? What does it
Mhm.
mean? And who cares? And began struggling with some of those questions. And once I got to, you can't answer all those questions about yourself in one night. You work on it. You answer two or three of them, and then you begin to put those building blocks together. And the next thing you know, you're like, okay, I'm starting to get a picture of my mission here.
Mhm. And that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? I mean, when a man gets fired up and he about a passion, especially a passion that is one to lift up others, because we can be passionate about the wrong things. And I mean, there's, you know, all sorts of corruption that's happened in the world because people are passionate about
Sure.
the wrong things. So when I say this, of course, I'm talking about being passionate about honorable things like you're talking about. And it's just something that just lights up the masculine soul when a man finds his passion and then he works out of his passion. And that's just, that people just are drawn into men who are passionate about a cause greater than themselves. And whether it's family or friends or community, I think, or even just the extended community that we have socially now through the social networks, there's just something powerful about that, and people are just drawn to men of passion. So thanks for getting that message out. And I talked about a man being passionate, but I just want to ask you this question: what does it take to be a man?
The one word answer
Hmm.
would be strength.
Hmm.
And of course, that one word answer is, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult to
Hmm.
be strong than, it's easy to say, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. You can say it, but being strong is the hard part.
Hmm.
And it's important to be strong in all these different areas. It's important to be strong physically. Um, and It's important to be strong financially.
Hmm.
And it's important to be strong mentally. And it's important to be strong emotionally. And, these areas we do everything we can. And none of us are perfect. And I can tell you, I'm not going to win any win any challenges at the weightlifting competition. But it is important that we be strong.
Right.
And in particular, I guess it's important for us to be able to be emotionally strong so that for our families or for other people around us, when they have a challenge that shakes them to their core,
Hmm.
where are you as a man? Are you in a position to help them?
Hmm.
Are you freaked out about your own stuff? Or are you freaked
Right.
out by what they come to tell you when they need you?
Hmm.
Um, it's important to be strong. I mean, of course, there's a lot of other ways I could answer that. It's important to be loving, of course, and
Sure. Yeah.
important to care about other people. But I think if you were to boil it down and to just one concept, the one that comes to my mind is strength.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that actually coincides with the conversation I had with some friends this past weekend. I had the opportunity of sharing at a conference, at a men's conference, and that was I had the opportunity of talking about the four pillars of my work: intellectual, spiritual, physical, and relational. And of those pillars, the way that I see it is the deeper that you root those pillars, the greater that you can actually add strength. So that was actually one of the words that I used in defining my work is these pillars uphold a man so they can be strong for others and so they can sacrifice and so they can serve. Actually, that was the kind of the cap off of what we talked about in that conversation. So I totally resonate with that message and that strength. In that resolve, in all those areas that you said. So when it comes to being a man, I believe that there are men in our life or people in our life who have shaped us more than others. Who's had a who's had the biggest impact on you as a man?
Mhm. Well, a great question. I really I think of three guys, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, Clearly, my own father, who is a great man and taught me so many good things about being a man. I think about my grandfather, my mother's father,
Hmm.
and I think that, and I was young. I mean, I guess he passed away when I was maybe around 20, somewhere in there, maybe a
Hmm.
little younger. And so I was younger. It was my younger years, but I remember the strength in this older man.
Hmm.
And he was 84 when he passed away. And I think like, my gosh, if I make it to 84 or beyond, I want to be like him.
Mm. Wow.
And so I think about how his grace and his humor and the way that he loved and took care of the people that he loved. I mean, if he loved somebody, he took care of them. He was just a good man. And then I think the third is a guy, I won't mention his name here, but just a guy in the community who was there for me through some very, very difficult times,
Hmm.
and met him through one of the mentor programs at my local church in
Awesome.
Atlanta. And he didn't know me. He didn't need to help me. He wasn't related to me, but he stepped up and helped me at a time when I was very weak
Mm.
and my life was in shambles.
Wow.
And he helped me learn when it was really not a good time for me. He helped me learn how to be a man. And it was primarily, I think, if it was primarily strength that I learned from him.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because you say that you learned strength from him, but also what he was modeling for you is service because he stepped up to help you in your place, and he didn't need to. He didn't have to. Wasn't obligated. He just kind of.
Correct.
It sounds like he just kind of stepped into the gap, and that's what men should do. Men who are outside of themselves and who I believe are growing and maturing and becoming stronger and better men, I think that we will have look for and seize those opportunities like this gentleman did for you, and that's amazing. You know that these he just has that kind of impact on you. is really, really fantastic. So let me ask you this. Was there something about being a man that you feel like you were ill prepared for?
Hmm. So I think I could answer it maybe in a couple of different ways, but the one that comes to mind first is I I was ill prepared for the the death of my best friend when
Wow.
we were young, early 20s, and we'd grown up together, and it was sort of the loss of innocence, I guess, for me.
Mhm.
And um, of course, I mean, that would be a terrible thing for any of us to have to go through at 21. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's common, but oh, that experience shook me to the core. And of course, I grieved and I missed him and had to go through all of that. But that was early in the moving into manhood, right? As adulthood.
Mhm.
And I I wasn't prepared for the possibility of such a devastating loss.
Mm. Yeah, and I can't even imagine how anyone would be at 21. It actually reminds me of a book that I read a while back, and he was talking about the two, what he calls the two halves of life. And he says that really thing that a lot of people can live in the first half of life, uh, and he says that really the only thing that gets someone into the second half of life is a death, and whether it's a physical death like your friend, or whether it's death of a loved one, or death of a dream, or uh, some sort of crippling loss that an individual faces. And the interesting thing that he talks about in the book is he talks about in one the first part of life is when we are building a container, and he said in the second half of life is when you learn the value of what's in your container to pour out for others. So maybe you learn that lesson early and endured all that pain just so that you can be the man that you are now, and just have such a passion to serve, and to you use your masculine strength to uplift others.
Well, I believe in a thing that I've heard, different pastors and teachers use, which is God's economy.
Hmm.
God doesn't waste anything,
Hmm.
and you may live through something horrible. And I'm going to go ahead and speak now to the audience and the guys out there listening. I mean, you may be going through something right now that is horrible, and the details about it, I don't need to know them. I just know that you're going through something right now that sucks,
Mm.
and in a big way, and it's painful, and it doesn't make sense, and you may feel uh, devastated,
Mm.
but the Lord is with you, and He's working things
Amen.
out in your life. And it's hard to trust that process when things are awful. But my word to you guys is just you're not alone.
Mm.
And like I used to say to my son as he would go to bed every night, I would just remind him that line from the movie Gladiator, "Strength and honor."
Mm.
And when you're out there, be brave, face this mess, whatever this mess is, face it, get through it, and you will come out on the other side stronger than you are now. Just be patient with the process and let God do his thing.
Mm. That is a good word. That is a really good word. What about this? Look at the current situation with manhood and all the things that are said about men today. What about manhood today concerns you?
Oh, probably just the fact that uh, in a lot of areas in our culture, manhood is mocked and
Mm.
belittled and made fun of and demeaned.
Mm.
Um, it sends a confusing message, I think, to the younger generation, to the young guys. And I think it also sends a confusing message to the ladies, to the young ladies.
Mhm.
Look, we're not all the same. I'm not the guy that's we not all have to be the same, and the way that we carry ourselves or dress or speak is we're not all the same. That's not the point.
Mhm.
But the core of manhood, to be someone who protects his family and is a provider in his home, and that looks out after other people that he can care for in appropriate ways. Um, that's a really important thing to have in culture. And it's an important thing for us to embrace. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, that stuff's kind of been made fun of. And then if you take that away from a guy, and we talked earlier about how important it is for us to have an adventure
Mhm.
and for us to we're sort of built for the adventure, and we need that in a positive way. But if you take that away from us, or you take away our real purpose, um, and you kind of mock that idea, if the guy falls into thinking that, he's kind of becomes lost. And that's what concerns me the most about uh, manhood in modern times.
Hmm. So, what in your life has helped you to be a stronger man, either physically, intellectually, spiritually, or relationally?
Definitely pain.
Hmm.
It- the the biggest growth that I ever went through was as a part of the worst time I ever went through.
Mhm.
And um, of course, I talked about when I was younger, the death of my best friend.
Mhm.
That was devastating. It was rough. It was also devastating to go through a divorce and
Mhm.
to go from uh, pouring everything into trying to make a life with the woman you loved to um, having to or being confronted with, well, that's over and the future looks nothing like the past has looked,
Mhm.
and it's going to require all this stuff that you don't feel prepared for, whether it's financially or emotionally. um,
Mhm.
and that was tough, and for me, that was about 12 years ago as we sit here and record this now. That was about 12 years ago when that process started, and it certainly, took time, and then getting on the other side of it, and
Mhm.
and becoming a new man, a new kind of man.
Mhm.
That was a process for me that took many years, but it definitely came out of pain, and it came out of the worst time in my life. So let me be very clear. I'm not saying that a divorce will make you better. That's not what I'm saying, because that's
Mhm.
not what I would want anybody to fight for. You should fight for the marriage, not for not to get out of it.
Mhm.
But when things happen in life and you don't want them and don't like them and can't control them and they're awful and they're painful, they're if you will embrace it, you will learn from it. And I will just have to say, there's no doubt that going through that shaped me,
Mhm.
and has a I think, Chad, to be honest, it motivates me in terms of compassion, caring for other people and the pain they might be going through.
Mhm.
It helps me know some of the pain that somebody's going through if they're going through something similar, and it it also helps me, I think, to not judge,
Mhm.
because I was so humiliated by my divorce.
Mhm.
I felt like the worst person ever. I felt like a failure, and I just felt like the worst person. I felt like everybody
Wow.
hated me, right early in the early days. I thought, okay,
Mhm.
I'm no, no, and you have to go through that. Sometimes you have to walk through that and come to grips with the truth.
Hmm.
And certainly for me, I know that was a long answer, Chad. Sorry, but
No, no worries.
going through that, buddy, that shaped me.
Hmm. Well, I could see how it would. There's a couple times that you said "new kind of man," And you said it just now when you answered, but then earlier you were kind of hinting at it, which I just wanted to say this. Actually, that's the reason why I named my work the way that I did. It's a new kind of man that I'm thankful that when God made us, He didn't just punch out a bunch of widgets. So we're not all going to look alike, sound alike, talk alike. We don't have the same stories. You know, we have different woundings, different stages of healing. We have different. You know, ultimately, I think that we have one full purpose. To me, I think it's to glorify God and bring good in the world. Those two things kind of marry very well together, but we do that in just a myriad of different ways. So, a new kind of man. I love how you even said that because it does bring in the uniqueness of every man. And one of the things that I think is not that unique about men is oftentimes it does take pain to get our attention. We can just kind of cruise through life, and all the men that I've worked with for years, it's just proven over and over and over. We can get so comfortable, find the path of least resistance, and just kind of settle into what we think is the good life, and then life comes to a screeching halt for one reason or another, and usually it's pain. So for you, and I thank you just for being vulnerable and sharing that story. I know that that will encourage a lot of men to just you being open about that and not hiding that, but also just to encourage just all the men, in a similar way. You do have a unique path, a unique story. There's things about your life that have impacted you, and I believe that God wants to use those things to bring glory to Himself and good in the world. And God never wastes a hurt. He never does. He never wastes a hurt. And when we embrace that reality and we don't settle for selfishness or just pacifying our own wounds, when we go to God with those wounds, wow, that is an incredible thing. And then out of that is a man like you, Adam. And just so uh, you could stand up and serve others, and to kind of step beyond that. And I just really know that you've had some victories in that regard. I realize it's been 12 years, but time does not heal all wounds. That is simply not true. So I'm a firm believer that God can heal all wounds. Time does not heal all wounds. And I part of my story has been true in that regard. So you mentioned Gladiator, which, I mean, I think every guy should watch Gladiator. If you haven't watched Gladiator, I mean, seriously, what's a guy doing?
It
You
was
got
like
to watch.
basically it was the last good movie. I mean, it was maybe not
Right.
quite, but like they don't make them like they used to, and that was a fantastic movie. I agree.
Oh, totally agree. So I'm a reader, and I was just wondering, is there a book that you would refer the guys to? Again, some of the pillars of my work is spiritual, relational, physical, and I forgot the other one, but there's four. I told you earlier. Yeah, but of those things, is I believe that reading is a valuable part of that. So, what book would you recommend to the listeners today?
So a book I read, and it's not a new book, and so I know many of you guys have read it. You probably have read it as well, by John Eldridge,
Hmm.
Wild at Heart.
Oh yeah,
And
favorite.
yeah, it's a good one. And I remember reading it, and I read it during a time when I was facing those some of those very, very tough moments. But it did help me to um, understand and embrace the calling that is on a man's life.
Hmm.
And I thought it just in so many wonderful ways. It also talked about what a wonderful thing it can be and should be when a man uh, loves his wife and leads her lovingly, and cares for her lovingly. I remember how important it was to me at the time, and certainly stuck. Many of the principles have stuck with me, and I'm sure have influenced my work as well.
Mm. Yeah, the and his element about adventure. I brought a group of men through that book this summer, and that has been the outside of the Bible, it's been the single most influential book of the hundreds of books that I've read, and just an incredible book. Chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 have just remarkably changed my life. And when I brought them in through it this time, I just got something else. And I've been going through that book, I think, since 2001, maybe 2003. But I've been just going through it for years. And so I, like you, Adam, I just go back to it over and over and over. And when I go back to it, I get new things from it, and it just helps me. And I love what he talks about adventure. That was the first time that I really had an awakening in my own life that, oh man, it's an adventure to live. It's a
Right.
battle to fight, a beauty to rescue, and an adventure to live. That's the three kind of main tenets of that book. And and so the adventure to live, and I was like, whoa, this explains my childhood of, picking up a stick, and it was no longer a stick. It was either a sword or a bazooka or an M16. Or, I mean, it was whatever the weapon was at the time, and just my childhood. So I could just visualize all of that with the adventure to live. And
Right.
so I definitely see how that could have shaped your story.
Very much so. And yeah, that gets back to what we said earlier of just how very um, undeniable, I guess. There's so many things that are in us as kids and as young men, as boys, that they need to grow and develop, and they need to come into their own, and they need to be applied appropriately.
Hmm.
But we are who we are,
Hmm.
and I'm that same kid that we used to dream about going to far off lands and
Hmm.
doing something, I don't know, saving somebody or doing something like you'd see in the movies a hero would do, so on and so forth. But
Right.
real life is different, and real life requires a different kind of hero. It's
Hmm.
nice to look at the movies, and doesn't always work out like that. But my uh, appreciation for those servants around the world. They're the ones that I like. I'm like, man, these are the heroes, and these are the guys and the gals that have chosen to give up the comforts of home and to live in locations that are more dangerous and less comfortable
Hmm.
than what they could have back home. And why would they do that?
Hmm.
Why would they do that? Well, that's what we need to get to the bottom of in the television series The Edge of Adventure. And we got to get to the bottom of that. I want to dig in and drill down and find out, okay, what makes you want to do this? Because I think when people share that, as
Hmm.
these men and women share their stories as to why they've chosen to do that and why they chose to serve other people and lead these adventurous lives, I think the answers are going to be pretty inspiring.
Well, I think they are too. So, as we wind down, is there any new work that you want to talk about that you want the listeners to know about and engage with? So, anything new that's coming out that others need to be involved with?
Well, thank you so much for the question. Thank you again for this opportunity to chat, get to know you, and I look
Hmm.
forward to hanging out in Atlanta next time you get up here. Um, so the biggest thing that people can do right now is just log on to theedgeofadventure.com or look me up online. You'll find me on just about every social media platform. You can look up The Edge of Adventure. You can look up Adam Asher and find me, connect with me, let me hear from you. And that is honestly the biggest thing that people can do right now, because I'm working on some projects behind the scenes, not totally at liberty to talk about them, but there are some big things coming. I'm excited. I'm humbled. I I'm things are only just beginning,
Hmm.
and humbled is really the key word here, because like I like to say, I stole this line from Jack Black,
Hmm.
but I like to say it because it struck me funny when he said it. I'm just some dude, and
Hmm.
it was funny in the moment. It was the way only Jack Black can say it.
Hmm.
But I'm just some dude. I mean, honestly, I'm nothing special, and I'm not looking for compliments or anything like. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy, but I do feel like I have come to grips with my purpose and some things I need to do with my life, and I think it's a pretty special fact that I know that because I haven't always known that. I've spent time in my life where I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what to do next. But I grappled with some tough questions. I put some pieces together, fortunately. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to do this. And
Mm,
if I can get more great people like yourself and some of the other great guys that we've connected with, just having your support
mm,
online and telling other people about the project, that's what I need right now. And
mhm.
then very soon, I mean, certainly in the next few months, depending on when you're listening to this, I hope to have some great new announcements, and as soon as I can, I'll share those. But working on all that stuff behind the scenes.
Awesome. Well, it's a compelling story that I think that the listeners will definitely want to jump in on. You have such a clarity to your purpose and your calling, and that is inspiring in itself. Just to see a man who's clear about what he's supposed to do, the vision and just the path that you're taking is obviously the one you're supposed to be taking. So, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And it's been my pleasure to get to know you a little bit better. I look for other opportunities for us to maybe sit at a coffee shop or go have some good food in Atlanta whenever I'm rolling up there next. So, Adam, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And and for all of you listeners, you need to go and check out theedgeofadventure.com. Be inspired. Look at the new work and jump into it. You will not be disappointed.